Good day and welcome to another episode of WEDCOnomics, brought to you by Wentworth Economic Development Corporation and Wolfeboro Community TV. I am Jack Terrill, Executive Director of WEDCO, Wentworth Economic Development Corporation. And we are in business to advise, finance, and promote the small business sector here in the Eastern Lakes region of New Hampshire. As my loyal audience obviously knows this, and we like to do episodes and talk about small business and the challenges and the excitement that comes with folks that want to enter into that world. So today we have a very special guest. Welcome, Bob Marchewka. Bob?
Jack, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Bob's a commercial realtor in the greater Seacoast area. He works with Brick and Barn Group and Compass Real Estate. And so I consider Bob to be an expert on entrepreneurial undertakings. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The title of the show is You Might Be an Entrepreneur If. And so we're going to chat about that today. If you're been wondering if you're cut out for that sort of world of ownership and small business and entrepreneurial spirit, then hopefully you'll get something out of this show, and you'll know a little bit more at the end than you did when we started. Bob, I wanted to start with asking you, you're a commercial realtor now, a broker. I wanted to ask you about your own professional journey and how you got to where you are today and what your journey was like.
Okay, I don't know how far back you want me to go, but I've always worked in real estate.
Always?
Yeah, other than, college jobs and stuff like that. But and I've worked for large companies as an employee and smaller companies as an independent contractor. I've worked for myself. I currently work, I'm affiliated with the Brick and Barn Group now that's part of Compass Real Estate, which is a broad network of real estate offices throughout the United States, but I still act independently within that. So I've always had somewhat of an independent streak, if you will. My parents were both entrepreneurs. They both had clothing stores and ran them and operated them themselves. So it was probably a bit of an entrepreneurial streak that runs through the family, maybe.
Yeah, right. It would seem that their stores were in West Lebanon, New Hampshire.
They were,
right?
yes, Main Street.
Ed and Lucy's.
Yeah. Ed's Men's Shop and Lucy's Ladies Sportswear.
Were they in the same building?
They were.
They were.
Yeah, they each occupied half of the building.
So you really grew up sort of surrounded by that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, I did.
What did you garner from that? What did you pull or take away from watching your parents be entrepreneurs as you grew up?
Well, I saw them go from being employees to being owners of their own business.
So they were employees for somebody else before they started to go into...
Yes.
Okay.
And I guess that what I witnessed is their sort of love for doing what they were doing. They sold clothing and were very attentive to their customers and knew the customers' needs, and a lot of them were friends, and so they really were part of the fabric of the community, which was nice.
More so than perhaps they would have been as employees for somebody else.
Yeah.
You almost have to be woven into the community if you want to.
You really do, yeah.
If you want to have that steady sort of business, which in a resort area if you have a small business, you want to make sure you have a relationship with the locals because the tourists come and go,
Exactly.
right? And if you don't have that base, that local base, it could be a tough slog to go.
Yes.
You would agree. So you outlined sort of your career in real estate, but you've also along the way have done some things that I would classify or identify as entrepreneurial undertakings. Can you speak to a couple of those things that you did outside of your commercial real estate career?
Sure. For several years, I had a business called Record Time, and it was I made clocks out of record albums with a pendulum made out of the record's cover, and I would sell them online. This is right when the internet started, so that it wasn't as robust as it is now, but I also sold them in stores in downtown Portsmouth. So that was kind of a fun side hobby business. And somewhat recently, maybe 10 years ago or so, I started a company called Scoot Me Now, which was a scooter rental business, mopeds. So we had a place in downtown Portsmouth and rented out scooters by the hour, half day or day. And that was a lot of fun. So I think, those two projects, if you will, were just things I liked, and just sort of gave me a more well-rounded business environment, if you will. Instead of just focusing on one path, I was able to maybe use a little different part of my brain.
So it was you didn't have to do those two examples that you brought up. You didn't have to do them. You chose to do them.
Yeah, I thought they were good ideas, and so I acted upon my my idea of doing those as businesses.
Yeah, and I guess what you make it sound somewhat, so I did it. Well, there's a lot to doing it.
There
right?
is, yeah.
There's a lot to get to the point of sale.
Yes.
So you had to have had some decent commitment, and also, would you say that you had support in these ideas as you move forward, or chose to move forward?
Support in what way?
Let's call it family support. Let's say.
Yeah, I think nobody told me no. Everybody likes a scooter, so and actually my kids were employed by the scooter business.
Okay. While they were in college, kind of thing, or
high school and college, yeah.
So that gave them some summer employment.
Yeah, so that worked out well. So as far as like the clocks, it was it was, my family was supportive. I spent a lot of time, not a huge amount of time, but you had to do research and figure out where to buy clock parts and things like that. Source all the
right. Yeah. So there was a big commitment to it.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was led me down a path I hadn't gone before and learned about something new. So that was good.
So you had to go to establishments in Portsmouth and say, "Will you sell my clocks?"
Yeah. Yeah, and I found a couple.
You found a couple.
Yeah. So that was,
Yeah. What did it feel like when you sold the clock?
Felt great. Well, it did. It felt great because it sort of reinforced my idea that this was a good product. So you never know, right? I thought it was a good product, and other people agreed.
It was so you highlighted, a lot of the folks out there in the audience don't recall the day when albums came and they had these beautiful album covers. They don't exist anymore. They exist, but they're not getting produced anymore. And many of the album covers were beautiful artwork, and it was a way of preserving that. And,
Right.
Was there an artist that sold better than others?
Not necessarily. It was mostly classic rock stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you'd have a Jimi Hendrix album with his head swinging on a pendulum below.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
What's wrong with that? There's nothing. Yeah. Well, and so I guess I'm kind of driving at. We don't have to answer this, but there is something clearly within you, whether it was you were born with it or it was nurtured through your parents' own experience and your own, that lends itself towards entrepreneurial spirit. And I guess for those out in the audience, the question, at least for me, is, are you born with entrepreneurial spirit, or can you nurture entrepreneurial spirit? And I want to bring up another venture that you've been involved with, and it's the Bob Dylan Appreciation Night,
Yes.
which happens once a year.
Yeah.
And around his birthday, sometime in May or something like that. And
Right.
it's a collection of talent. It's an open mic, so to speak. And everybody comes in and does Bob Dylan songs as a way to honor the work that he has done over the years. That's no small undertaking, and there's very little material gain for you,
Right. It's not a financial windfall or anything. So,
and yet it's entering into its 20-something year.
yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So there's another example of you seeking sort of that entrepreneurial outlet to see if this idea would take root.
Yeah. Kind of did it on a whim the first year, and there were a few of us that put it together, and we didn't know how it would turn out, if 3 or 4 people would show up or whatever. And lo and behold, there was a line outside the door of the press room, restaurant, and bar, and that was almost 25 years ago. But that project, and like the scooters and even the record clocks, that it all was, for me, being part of the community and kind of trying to add to your community and make it interesting and give something to people that they want, and make your community a more interesting place.
A more interesting place. That would not be a bad philosophy for someone considering going into small business.
Right.
To not ignore the importance of, it's not just you want to make the sale or you want to make a little money on the sale. It's how can I make my community more attractive
Yes.
for everybody.
Right, because you're a part of the fabric of the community. So you have to think about how you fit into the fabric and how you can not only benefit but add to your local business community.
Right. I mean, I think you single-handedly changed Portsmouth, because when you started Scoop, there weren't a whole lot of scooters around in Portsmouth.
No, there weren't. But
You
there
go
are
down
now.
there this summer, or this past summer or next summer, It's stunning how many scooters are being
Yeah, I don't know if I had
utilized.
anything to do with it,
Well,
but
clearly
certainly
you did.
we might have been a little ahead of the curve, which was good.
Yeah. Being ahead of the curve is also something that, as an entrepreneur, you want to ask yourself that. Am I catching the wave, or has
Right.
the wave gone by me?
Yeah.
Right? And I think both with all three of the examples, clocks, Bob Dylan appreciation, and scooters, you were in front of that wave.
Yeah, I would say that's the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I wanna just sort of segue into the next section, which this is called "You Might Be an Entrepreneur If," and I'll throw out some ideas on how people might identify as an entrepreneur or not, and you can chime in and say very important, or whatever, however you would like to comment on the thought. So,
Okay.
are you all ready out there to play the game? This is going to be fun. You might be an entrepreneur if you do not fear risk.
Yeah, there's a lot of risk to being an entrepreneur. You don't have a paycheck every week. I think some people don't fear risk, but I think it's natural to fear risk. I think it's what you have to do is learn to deal with it, and so it doesn't overcome you. And risk is not a bad thing or to fear, because you can't just go down the road blindly. I think you could have a little bit of fear there, but I think managing that fear is very important. So I think having it is natural.
Okay, that's a good point. And so, therefore, those with entrepreneurial dreams should not allow themselves to be derailed by risk. You accept that risk, you embrace that risk, and you manage that risk. But it shouldn't stop you from going forward.
No.
I know from a personal point of view, that's a big stepping stone for me to move into the entrepreneurial world. Some people like to just go to work for somebody, go home after work, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But then I find that I've taken risks in all my professional career. I've just done it for somebody else, not
Yeah,
myself.
there's always a risk.
Yeah. You might be an entrepreneur if making the sale means as much to you as making profit.
Yeah, I guess so. I think you take pride in selling something that you think is necessary, or you think people will like. So, I think there's a lot of pride involved, and as opposed to just cashing in, making the money, and moving on. So, I think it's an important part of it. And it's important that your customers feel like they got something from you and that you're invested in it. I think that's important, as opposed to just a one-off, because that doesn't.
That's not
Do-
sustainable.
No, it isn't.
Right. You might be an entrepreneur if you like to create things that might find a market.
Yeah, I guess we've seen that a lot of times with people have an idea for a product or some kind of item for sale, and they build a business around it. It takes a lot of work. It takes a good idea, and it takes someone who's committed. But yeah, I think if you're an idea person, it's probably a good outlet for you, being an entrepreneur.
Right. You hear people who probably are deep down entrepreneurs, those are the folks that are likely to get frustrated when they're working for somebody and they can't get their ideas to fruition.
Yeah.
Somehow it gets stopped along the way
Yeah.
for whatever
Well, you're
reason.
dealing within someone else's boundaries, if you will, and so if you're on your own, there are no boundaries.
You might be an entrepreneur if you are not flustered by hearing the word no.
Yeah. I mean, you probably get turned down for a lot of things, or whether it's financing or, someone saying it's not a good idea, so there might be some negativity. I mean, you need to listen to people because you don't want to go blindly off on some scheme that is not going to work. But I think you have to remain committed and believe in yourself and your idea.
In your three little sidelines that we discussed earlier, the clocks, the scooters, and the Bob Dylan Appreciation Night, did you face any sort of questioning or negativity as you sort of ventured down the paths?
Not really. Mostly from myself. So, like for the scooters, I thought, hey, this is a great idea. I saw them in Nantucket, and this would be good in Portsmouth. And so then I thought, well, it's probably the insurance is too high. And I looked into the insurance. It was very reasonable. And then I thought, well, I'll probably have to take out a loan to buy a bunch of scooters, so the bank is, they're not going to. And I walked in, and my banker said, hey, that sounds like a great idea. So all along the way, what I thought were barriers were not. And so
Well, that's a sign right there.
I got to the point whether I wanted to do it or not, I was going to do it. So, but it turned out great.
So, interesting point. Much of the negativity came from yourself, the doubt
Yeah.
of whether to move forward or
Right.
not.
And I just had to kind of work through that, sort of force myself through it. Because you can always have an idea, talk about it, but
Well,
to act on it takes some commitment.
I throw out the number, 95% of everything is an idea that doesn't get acted on, and it's only 5% that actually comes to fruition.
Yeah, probably
there's-
right.
Yeah. You might be an entrepreneur if you are capable of multitasking.
Yeah. Certainly that's necessary in a business. Just in real estate, it's one thing being a broker or salesperson, but then, you have marketing, you have to keep track of your finances, a bunch of different aspects of that. And so in any business, it's like that. You have your sort of main job to sell something, but there's also these other pieces around it. So, it's sometimes best to know what you do best and to kind of outsource the rest of the stuff instead of trying to do everything yourself. And a lot of entrepreneurs, small business people, sort of get bogged down, I think, because they don't see the benefit of maybe hiring an outside marketing firm or something like that. They try and do it all themselves. So, but I think it's best to know what you're good at and know your limitations.
Yep. Of course, some people who are just starting out can't afford to outsource or whatever.
Yeah.
So that creates a challenge as well.
Sure.
But that's kind of where a business plan can come in and sort of
Right.
guide you through that.
Yeah, you need a plan.
Yeah.
You can't just go off. You can. But
So you might be an entrepreneur if you work best without supervision.
Yeah, I guess that would be the case. Or you don't like people telling you what to do, and like in a job. But yeah, I think it's the type of person who is a self-starter and can go and manage a project on their own. If they need help, they ask for it. But they're autonomous. Yeah, I think that's correct.
Yeah, I mean, that's my impression, that there are folks that just do better on their own. And
Right.
I think that would be part of the definition of.
Yeah, I think that I fall into that category. So.
I have traits that would indicate that with me as well.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that you don't value the opinion of others or seek the opinion of others. That's not to say you eliminate that part of the communications.
Right, I think that's very important to continually seek out ideas, input, information from other people.
Two more. You might be an entrepreneur if you place a high value on your time and efforts.
Yeah, I guess you have to realize that your time and efforts do have value. And it's not just, time that's been thrown away or, wasted. I think, a lot of people would maybe have an idea and go and start to act on it, and then, someone might tell them, well, that's a waste of time or whatever. And I think you have to know that it's not a waste of time, that it's something you're committed to, and it is valuable. Whether you end up doing something or not, you're going to learn. You'll learn more about yourself, and maybe you'll learn about an industry that you weren't familiar with. So,
one of the things they say about when you start a small business is to make sure you pay yourself first.
Yeah, if you have any money. So, yeah, that's a tough one,
But the point of that is, to put it a little bit differently, make sure you value your time and effort.
Yes.
Because if you don't value your
right,
time
you've got to
and
factor
effort,
that into your business plan. Let's say, and it's not here's the rent, here's the electric bill, here's the cost of goods and services. You have to build in your time, your salary, whatever, and build your business around that. If it just succeeds without you getting paid,
then it didn't succeed.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't get paid for a while,
And that's okay.
Yeah, as long as you can see the business growing to the point where you can benefit financially.
Our last one, you might be an entrepreneur if you look at things and see opportunity.
Yeah, I would agree. A lot of people do that. That's how new ideas are made, whether it be a restaurant where someone says, you know what, that's a great spot for a restaurant. Right now it's an unused warehouse, but they have an idea. And, things like that can, it's very creative, I think. So,
In a way, it's
which
how
is
you
nice.
might be wired in your brain.
Yeah, it does use the creative part of your brain, which is, I think you need both parts working. So, yeah, I think, and opportunity is seeing something that no one else saw or no one's acted on. So,
Well, you know what? We had more to talk about. We are out of time. We're going to have to do a part deux, which is fine. But we did get the major portion of the message today out, which is you might be an entrepreneur if some of the characteristics that we outlined exist within you. Then you might be a good fit to be a small business owner or business ownership or working unsupervised. So hopefully, that's some food for thought for everybody. We will continue this conversation because I think, as you all know, the Eastern Lakes region in New Hampshire is all about, the economy is all about entrepreneurs and small business. And the more we drill down on that, the more we recognize it, the more we celebrate it, I think the healthier the economy we will have in this rural area. And it's been WEDCO's pleasure to get some people started in small business and ownership to the point where they'll create wealth over generations. We want to continue to do that. We want to continue to shine the light on what we do and what entrepreneurs do for us. So, Bob, thanks for coming in.
thanks for having me.
We'll have you back. We'll
Okay.
discuss some more as we go down this path. Timothy, thank you for Wolfeboro Community TV. You're a great partner. We appreciate that. We appreciate the fact that we're able to have a conversation with you folks every couple of weeks, and we really appreciate you tuning in. So, until next time, be well.